with a roll call. Hang close. There we go. That's what we want to make sure. Dr. Cable, present. Ms. Carlina, present. Mr. Castile,
Here.
Ms. Bowman, present. Ms. Gaines, here. Ms. Hooper, Ms. Lawson, present. Mr. Myers,
Here.
Mr. Payne, Mr. Vido, here. You have 8, which does represent a four. Wonderful. Thank you very much. Welcome everybody to our first meeting of the new year. I hope everyone had a very restful holiday, a very fun and exciting start to carnival season. I go on a king cake at night on January 6th, and I have eaten king cake since then. And it's going to be a very fun-filled 6 weeks, I'll just say. So I'm already exhausted. So just thank you guys for coming this morning. And any other introductions and announcements? You have some new employees.
I'll start.
Thank you.
Good morning, I'm Alice Brown, IT Director for LOSFA Programs, and we have a student intern. It doesn't grade. Student at Southern University of Southport studying computer science. And then we have Tarandon. Tarandon is our new IT technical specialist in user support. He's also a graduate of Southern University. And he's going to be working with Parker on, again, all things user support. Welcome to IT for the mountain. Thank you. Welcome.
Good morning, everyone. I will start with big problem as well. We have 3 awesome excited about what we're doing. Our advisory officers here. So David joins us from St. Parish School as Jack coordinator. But prior to that was an academic advisor, LOSFA. And so we welcome Mr. David. Speakers on the screen, but I want to out a lot. So as we're going through the hiring process, you as a speaker, this is a new way. And so the next part feels all the way on. Yeah. And she's our second conference advising officer that's joining us this week. Again, she had employment with the Department of Children and Services in their support enforcement division. So we're excited as we talk about wraparound support from us through our scales. We're excited that perspective. And then we have this Delarisha and Delarisha. Okay. So Delarisha is I would say that educator extraordinary. I read her resume and she's been awarded several times. I'm a teacher, but I was excited with what she's done with her previous experience with Southern University in their Student Services Center. And again, she's worked in multiple school districts, so she would definitely help us in advising of all students, but even with those from our secondary round. So we want to help all 3 of our now our total purpose.
Like I'm happy to.
Good morning, everyone. We have with us joining our team is Brittany Lee as our newest technical assistant specialist. Ms. Lee basically will act as liaison to help us overcome some of the challenges that we have in the office in their particular role. She has worked in the past as a senior consultant at Ainsworth Lloyd, firm out of Washington, D.C., as well as she has a bachelor's in science and marketing and bachelor's in administration from Southern University. And she's also had valuable experience as an instructor and advisor at Southern University. Well, in college, she played a key role in 5-year students as a teacher. Yes.
Now we're moving to our minutes from our December meeting. We'll take just a second to review those and then we need a motion to approve the minutes from the December 6th, 2023 meeting. There a motion? Is there a motion? Very, very helpful. The second. That was fine. In a second, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Any nays? Any discussion?
Only if there's objection.
Okay. Then motion passes. So, y'all are gotta give me a minute to get in there. Have it ready.
We'll talk about the differences later when we do the old business. Under, open meetings.
Okay, thank you. Public comment at this time, any public comment?
No comment.
Thank you. Now we're gonna move into program updates with Kelly April 1st.
Good morning, Terry Underwood with Start Programs. As you can see, these are our November numbers, over 82,000 collected accounts between the three programs and over $1.4 billion in assets that we're managing for the citizens of Louisiana. We're currently working on our December numbers. Those are still being filed as deposits are still being posted. We anticipate our December numbers based on what we're looking at now to be the highest end of the year that we've ever had since inception of the program. So we're extremely excited about that. That'll be more than coming to the next meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. College access and communications. Morning. These places.
So our events since July 1st are at 223 face-to-face, 35 virtual. This includes events that are requested to LOSFA and events that LOSFA also hosts for our virtual office hours. July 1, we are at 180 TOPS retention, TOPS initial eligibility. Those are some of the populations that we have for virtual networks. For professional development, a lot of things dealing with diversity, equity, inclusion, FAFSA, 529 plans, teamwork, as well as going summer health, summer success, metrics for success, and of course the NASDAQ power hours.
All right. So as far as FAFSA efforts are concerned, as most of us know, we're in the middle of a soft launch with the FAFSA. And so what we are doing is that we're kind of taking a multi-pronged approach to kind of tackling this new better FAFSA. One of the things that we are doing is partnering with our post-secondary institutions to have a host a FAFSA Frenzy Week. Since we have put all this together, ULM has also come aboard with FAFSA Frenzy Week, but basically we are asking institutions at least one FAFSA completion event between February 5th and February 10th, and these institutions have graciously stepped up. I believe URCC as well, since this put up, has joined the lineup, and so we are kind of working on pulling things together. I think the registration, the deadline for them to register is going to be Friday. Thank you to Mr. Myers for sharing that information with LOSFA as well. That was instrumental, along with Scott Burke on our team, that is our post-secondary liaison, in getting these institutions signed up. So what this will do is kind of take some of the pressure off of our high school counselors and start promoting these events and letting them know that these will be available local to them, you know, if they're close, and they can funnel their students and parents to these events as well.
You got me one more question. March this week since registration they've been running.
Yep.
I'll put it on my email list now, so I can.
You're so efficient. Okay. Which brings us to, thank you, FAFSA simplification training. And so Mr. Myers also did us a huge favor and came in and did some additional FAFSA training. We've been, since last July, we went to the Better FAFSA training in DC. We've attended numerous NCAN trainings, including the NCAN conference where they did the hands-on FAFSA workshops. We've had team members going to those as we just try to prepare as much as we can for when this launched. And so thank you to Bradley for hosting 2 different training sessions for our team members that do outreach and answer our phones and emails that we're up to speed with some of the latest changes, and we're able to assist our students and parents when they contact us. Yeah. So this is Wyatt. We have spoken about Wyatt before. Wyatt is our virtual FAFSA assistant or virtual FAFSA advisor. And so you will notice down at the bottom, the gethelpfafsa.org/LOSFA. Our page is now up and running. It is a co-branded page with LOSFA and Benefit Data Trust. They're the ones that manage Wyatt. And so again, back to that multi-pronged approach that we're taking. We're doing events in schools. We're doing the FAFSA Frenzy Week. We have virtual office hours. Our FAFSA lab is getting off the ground. So if individuals want to come into the office to complete the FAFSA, they can do that. And then we have Wyatt, who is going to be available 24/7 for our students and our parents in Louisiana. The great thing about Wyatt and Benefits Data Trust is that they are able to give our students like customized responses so that if they need hands-on assistance, it's going to actually refer them back to us. So we're able to get those students and assist them with those FAFSA questions. So we do have a little demo that we want to show to you. So that is Wyatt. So besides being super cute, Wyatt, I think, is going to be just extremely helpful in helping us amplify our FAFSA completion efforts. One of the great things that we found out yesterday, we met with Benefits Data Trust, is that they are actually meeting with FSA every week. And so in the process of meeting with them, they're able to find out if something is happening with the FAFSA, yes, it's something you need to address through Wyatt, or no, it's something that we're going to take care of on our end. So very much kind of making sure that it's responding the way that it needs to. They're just outstanding. Their team is outstanding. They also have made some changes to Wyatt. If you look at the initial wording, it talked about being for first-time filers. They have expanded that so that it's now like they're working on rolling it out for renewing returning filers as well the FAFSA. So we are, Shane and I were doing a joint press release with Benefits Data Trust. That's going to go out on the 11th. We're also going to send out counseling communications so that they'll know, share this with your parents and students, how to use Wyatt. And then also we will be texting this information we're coordinating with Benefits Data Trust once they get that renewing file piece set up. We're going to send that out to our cohort, the Signify as well, which is about 45,000 plus students. So if they need FAFSA assistance, they'll be able to go there. So I hope you guys like Wyatt, share Wyatt. Kind of be on the lookout on my social media pages for Wyatt. He's also linked on our FAFSA page, and he will also be linked through Lex. So if they go to Lex and they need FAFSA assistance, that will route them to Wyatt as well.
So is Wyatt AI or is it real people inside?
It's AI.
It's strictly AI.
Yeah, but it will, like, if they do need assistance or they get stuck somewhere, because of that partnership that we have with them, they can, instead of like getting a generic response, it'll refer them back to our agency for the students.
Brad, can you update me on where we really are with the FAFSA? Because I heard yesterday on the radio, they didn't account for inflation, so now we've got some troubles with numbers and It's like you're taking 5 steps forward and
And I don't know that to adjust.
Yeah, it was supposed to address our inflation automatically with the initial one, it's supposed to do it annually as part of the legislation. I heard the same thing, is that the calculation, that was one of the things that didn't get updated, with multiple years, but, leave it alone. So the only thing I could see FSA doing is with processing ICERs, if they are to update those figures and reprocess the ones. But to my knowledge, they haven't actually processed the ICERs yet either. So, from what I read, they were waiting until the end of the month to begin processing. So students and parents can submit them, they're hanging out there in a queue, they haven't turned on the processing system. That's why they haven't kicked out ICERs and stuff. So I think they're rolling some of these pieces out. Now, the preemptive results that students and families are getting are calculating live. Those potentially change if they do ultimately update that, but this late in the game, I don't know if they're.
So I know at a NASFA board meeting, we talked about this in particular and just try to talk through like what would administrators rather have? Would they rather wait and reprocess, like process everybody at one time if they choose to update? Or go ahead and process the ICER now, that way we have access to them and they processing. I think most people are wanting an ICER today. We want an ICER, we want to start processing aid for students. And for those students who get reprocessed, that means some of them, you know, their aid may change. So I think that's kind of the sentiment of the NASFA board members, but you know, there's still a lot of conversation that's being had between the NASFA board and the department as well. Is there any constant communication?
There's also going to be some delay on, we are very much into Build Bond and his NCAN FAFSA tracker. They're not going to have data for that until April. So what they are doing now, and actually, Kylie and I are kind of in conversations with Bill now, that they are kind of asking some of the states if they're willing to share some of those completion numbers. Celia, we had our meetings with, what's the vendor, Alex, for Inbox for our complete portal info. So we were like, oh, you know, beginning of the year, it's gonna be ready. And then it's like, there won't be any numbers to put in it. So, you know, we're kind of hanging out on that, but those are just some of the challenges that we're seeing. Last night, learned something new during a virtual FAFSA completion event, that for that portion where they invite the contributor, if they type the name and like hit the space bar, and it's gonna say that there's no match. So literally we were like, did you by chance just happen to like type your parent's name and put a space? And it's like, maybe let me go back and retype it, and sure enough, the 2 students that cleared up the issue. So something that small was the difference between being able to send an email inviting your contributor versus not. So when we send out our counselor communication, we will be telling them to let us know what you're seeing at your event, so we can route those issues to the appropriate parties.
And I want to say the Department of Ed recently launched a website as well that addresses all of the issues that they've had since the launch of the FAFSA. So if you haven't seen that page, you may want to go take a look at it, just because it addresses a lot of issues that you might see as your students fill out FAFSAs.
I have a question then. Yeah, so that, do you get an email every week with the numbers of the completions? When will that be updated?
I believe that's April.
So we won't have that until April.
Now we will get information. I think that we'll start getting the ICERs whenever they start sending them out. That publicly available information is that they're expecting not to be available until like.
So how about your FAFSA completion?
Yeah, we have about the past restrictions.
Well,
Yes.
the FAFSA completion report.
That's what NCAN is asking.
Yeah.
Normally start when we start processing the FAFSA report, that's the 25 year, right? So if we're saying we're not getting it until April, we need to start it until April.
So y'all probably gonna get a lot of communication from counselors.
We'll get the ICERs in, I guess, beginning of February. That public data that FSA releases, that's not gonna be available until
But we can release data.
Yeah. When
And
we
that
start
was
getting
when
it.
we start getting them, so we will do that. That's what NCAN's question is. Is since NCAN's not going to get it from FSA, if the states are getting it before FSA releases it, will the states communicate to NCAN, who is the person, that's the entity that does the file that feeds compete to complete.
Right.
And so it's just going to be a back end saying, if we have the information, then, and I think if that been cleared up about the fact that we can share it with the school, I know that that was
It wasn't sharing it with the schools that was the issue, it was sharing it with entities like Bureau and Trio and things like that. That was still, that's actually
still
still
an issue.
an issue because the answer they said we got was they and not direct at once. So,
So
we can share it with schools.
So if schools already have an agreement with us, then they don't need to do a new agreement.
Right.
So we will share.
The reason that I'm even bringing that up is because the new email that they get sent when they submit the application, because when they submit it, it does not have the application year on there. And so as counselors, when we are trying to verify if a student has actually submitted the correct one, we used to be able to see it, you know, but I talked to Barry Bailey. I sent her the same text I sent to Ebony the other day because I saw 3 had submitted. And she said that they log back in, it'll say which one it is, but I mean, then it's getting back in, that whole thing. So if we can still get this, like, because that was brought up yesterday, we had a counselor meeting within our parish, and that was one of the questions, when will that be updated? And so I was like, I'll ask tomorrow.
We'll get it.
As soon as we get it. Thank you.
Question about, basketball launch.
How does that affect the higher education institutions? I know Christie, people like Christie will just be working forever. What about higher?
Well, so
What about higher?
part of the 2-year college is we're in a shared environment. So we have to get the release from our our student information system. We don't even have that release yet. That has to be installed and then we have to test it. It's likely full of bugs, which happens. And then once we have that in, we actually have to redo all of our rules. So every single rule that's in our system to package a student, we have to put all of those things done. So for us, I would say from a timing standpoint, it's probably not going to impact us as much just because we are a last minute FAFSA entity anyway, typically. We are hoping to have things processed by like April. That's what we're hoping, but that definitely could potentially change. So that's where we are at our system. Now, we typically don't process, honestly. I would say we, in the past, we processed late February, early March. So this is delaying us a couple of months, and that's assuming that there are no massive bugs to fix. We have people agree on rules. Like there's a lot of caveats to that. So we're hoping, but we've been communicating with our chancellors, our accounts receivable folks, and our enrollment folks to say, this is a huge barrier right now. You cannot have a fee payment deadline super early because there might not be anything to process at this point. So I think we've done a really good job of communicating out. So Brad or anything that y'all want to talk about?
Yeah, we're along the same timeline. We're currently making updates to our system right now, with, just different ICER, the data and the information that's available. I think it'll probably delay us about a month as well, which isn't ideal, of course, but I think everyone's in the same boat, so, I think because everyone's in the same boat, it kind of, puts us all in that same playing field, I suppose, for entering freshmen and then, of course, for continuing students. It's just, it's what it is, but yes, I'd say about a month delay.
Yeah, it really depends on the institution, what software system they're on. Some software organizations are already rolling out updates to try and account for the new FAFSA application, utilizing the test files that DOE provided, so you can try and test load these and see how the functionality works within the system. But some programs still haven't even launched the Pell methodology as a feature yet, which is an entirely new process in terms of your math Pell, your Pell, your SAI Pell, and then your enrollment intensity or proration of Pell based off of credit hour, like instead of enrollment status. Some of those features are not even live for some of these organizations. We're moving to Workday Student, and that is looking, they're not even going to be releasing a preview version of that to the month, which is kind of hard given that we're beginning ICERs in. And so it's delaying a lot of the timelines for a lot of students. I don't particularly like that. I don't think it's as dramatic as it could be, but I don't like it either, simply just because you're delaying the ability for students to have information on the front end to make fully informed decisions as to where they go. Getting 8 packages out as far in advance of May 1st, which is a traditional commitment deadline for a lot of students, can really impact, helping them make that decision, make that commitment, secure their enrollment spot at whatever institution they're going to go into. So we are looking at, we're actually not in a too terrible timeline. We're maybe a month delay, I think, said like total. But we're also trying to do as much testing as we can front end because we don't give incorrect data packages. So the inability to test, I think, is the biggest stressor for a lot of schools, because we can't see under this new ICER budget. I was on a call before I came to this meeting about testing, loading a 24 ICER file versus a 24-25. The process that works for one might be completely broken for the new ICER file. We don't have the ability to check that, right? Other than just the bitter test file saying happen. So once we get live data, then it's going to be probably 3 or 4 weeks from testing before we actually start bringing stuff live. Whereas normally we would start bringing stuff live mid-January.
Did I hear you? Do you envision that students are going to, entering freshmen are going to have to simply be more patient and to have enough information so that the families can decide where it is that they choose to enroll?
Yes.
The bottom line.
Ultimately,
We
yes.
talked about April, so now it may not be till May or whatever.
Right.
Is that?
And I think my biggest concern with that is the timing of those decisions, right? A lot of students are making those decisions, trying to pin that down and commit to do whatever they're going to do around the time of high school graduation. They're trying to just fully lock in. There's a lot of college deadlines around that time. There's a lot of schools that just aren't going to have anything available at that time. So if the student isn't able to make either an informed decision or a decision at all, do they simply decide to fall out? And does that impact fall enrollment for institutions? Because these students say, well, there's too much uncertainty, I'll just wait. Well, waiting a year, what it is. So that's my concern, is how does this impact students in their decision-making process, the timing of their decisions. I would imagine a lot of institutions might waive their May 1st deadlines, simply because of the delay. I think it would be good business to to see that. And it would ease up a lot of stress on a lot of students, simply just because they're not feeling this rush to do something without being informed. But my concern is the fall. How many students get past high school graduation when they're involved in this future decision-making process, if you will, get into June, completely forget about it, and then just ultimately decide.
Thank you.
Mayor Catherine, is there anything you want to provide? I would think from our standpoint, because we're not on a semester base, and our students, they start on their schools very quickly, start every month. As of right now, we're just gearing up to see what the events that actually take place. I know for last week, since it did have the time that the actual application was available, we were actually having issues with our students coming. The FAFSA, so once I heard several people say that they are push their timeline back to March and April. For us in particular, we actually start pulling our students and having them the 24-25 FAFSA at that time. So once the date actually continues. But as far as the SAI and recompleting the Pell, because we do everything in-house, we don't have birthdays. I actually spoke with Bradley about that at one point. But we do everything in-house, so it would just be us restructuring.
As someone that, y'all use a terminology that I'm not familiar with, this ICERs, is this impacting like the financial aid that's available and the scholarships and all of that, or how does that play a role in?
Yes and no. So the ICER is effectively the digital version of the FAFSA. So a student completes the FAFSA, they get sent to the institutions on a digital file or a flat text file that's run in the system. So that's how the Department of Education transmits the FAFSA to the school. Some institutions use the data on there to award not just federal aid, but institutional aid as well. So I know a previous institution, they use some of that data to award a institutional grant that's paired with federal help, which is sizable. It makes a huge difference in the decision they made in terms of affordability. And in terms of scholarships, some, I mean, I would say most are primarily merit, but I'm sure there's some out there that do have a financial component to it. But especially for institutional limited funds and institutional grants and stuff like that, they're handcuffed until they have that. So students can't have that confidence or the ability to say, okay, here's an 8 package that I need without that. So this slow.
We could essentially process off federal aid. No problem, but other types of aid, state aid, like go grant.
Go grant, that's what I was thinking of.
If someone happened to put in the packaging policy that there was a priority deadline or something like that, that's gonna impact. Colleges might have to change their rules. Packaging policy.
So just to prepare my students, hey, it's gonna maybe a little bit later before you get, well, it is going to be a little bit later before you get this. And then what, because they're starting to like, acceptances were later kind of this year than what some people were anticipating. So everything is a little bit later and some of my students are a little bit anxious about that. So just knowing this information, I can explain to them in a way that they understand, hey, this is why it's happening.
Thank you. A question from the audience.
Yeah, I did. Amy, LSU, is summer still a header?
Yes,
So that's the, do you see the school changing that?
not big change.
Okay.
So we actually have a couple of schools as for us that are summers ahead. We've talked about moving it because now it doesn't really fit the scheme of things. So some schools have summer at the end of the year, some schools have summer at the beginning of the year. Prior to these changes, that was important in the way they process aid because enrollment was a factor. Now that's gone away. And so some schools have toy with the idea of just making summer as a footer again, for sake, because that could impact a couple of our institutions who have classes that begin in June, that is a part of 24-25. So for those students, that's just really hard for communication with our business office. Like you can have a May 15th deadline that starts in June if we don't have the ability to say. So I'm sure Amy conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, I think everything just comes down to communication. You know, you just have to communicate with the students what is happening, you know, what's the timeline. We're all in the same situation, all on the same timeline. As long as we're all communicating and, you know, just being transparent about what the process looks like. You know, we can't change the, you know, summer's our header. That's not going to change. I think, in fact, the entire university will start to align with what we have as we move to Workday next year. Lots of alignment in that situation, but so yeah, I mean, I really think we're just doing our best to be as communicative as possible. There's not much we can do. You know, we're doing lots of, you know, filling out the FAFSA in our own office. You know, when we can get in through this and seeing what we can do and filling it out for our children who are, you know, very young and not, you know, all FAFSA eligible, of course, at this point, but just trying to do everything we can to test things right now. You know, again, we have a homegrown mainframe system right now as we transition to move to Workday. So we're able to make some of our updates right now. So we're trying to do that as best as possible with the new layout. But again, you know, there's only so much testing and such you can do ahead of time. So
and I think for students, like they're not like brand new students are none the wiser. They're just used to this. I mean, they're going to see something that they've never seen before. I think for continuing students, it's just going to be a little bit different than what they've done. I think administrators are the ones that are more about it all than students are. Just, I mean, there are still obviously some students who are just anxious to get information, but I think administrators are really the ones that are really freaked out.
Okay. So moving right along, this is one of the events that Daniel has done. Previously, we've spoken about how we've gotten requests for presentation materials for outreach materials in Spanish, Vietnamese, and Arabic. And so Daniel is incredibly fluent in Spanish. And actually, while we're in Cannes, we bumped into Ingrid, who is with ECHO from New Orleans. And I was able to introduce her to Daniel. They were able to get him set up to come out to this college and career fair that was targeted towards Spanish-speaking individuals. And so this was an opportunity for us to showcase some of those translated materials that we have. And then fun fact, Daniel is actually slated to do, and I don't know if LOSFA has ever done this before, but a first full-out presentation in Spanish. And so we actually got back the translated presentation a few days ago. So really excited about that. I think it's going to be Baker Central, I think. And we're going to have two presenters. One is going to be in English and one is going to be in Spanish. So really excited about the translated services that we're able to offer. And also did an interview with WAFB. The concern about the FAFSA kind of extends nationwide, so they wanted to kind of have me come in and talk about some of the expected changes, particularly in terminology and kind of what impact that was going to have our families in Louisiana. And Kayla Grove, who is part of the CAST team, represented LOSFA at the Cowan Institute's event at Tulane Life After High School, where she hosted several breakout sessions. This is like a smaller conference, but just a really deep conference, and they have a lot of great breakout sessions at that particular conference. And so Kayla was able to represent LOSFA at this particular conference.
So as part of our communications efforts, Delgado reached out to us to let us know about a new certification program that they have in technology that is MJ Foster eligible, MJ Foster Promise eligible. And so they asked us to share that information, send out about 6,000 emails to MJ Foster Promise eligible students to promote this as an option. They reported back to us that they did see a significant uptick in increase into that program. For our social media update, our impressions, this number is a little misleading because it does not include the non-paid Facebook content, which is where most of our traffic is. But we are going to have some paid ads, particularly when we launch YN. That's going to be a paid ad, so we have actually get some data on that from Facebook. But our impressions are up. Our total reach from the last meeting is 188,832 individuals. So those are the individuals who saw the content. The impressions are the number of times content is displayed on a device, and then our total engagement is up as well, and that is the number of likes, shares, comments, those things. So total reach is probably down because of holidays, but our total engagement is up because of the content that we shared. Our most popular content, of course, it's all FAFSA related. How to create an FSA ID, information about the launch of the Better FAFSA, and then LOSFA also created a document highlighting the FAFSA changes that everyone needs to be aware of. I think Federal Student Aid is sharing 6 things that they need to be aware of. We have 8 because there are some other things that we know about that we felt people should be aware of when they start to complete the FAFSA. Our followers across our platforms are all up across Facebook, X, formerly known as Twitter, and Instagram, which we are continuing to try to grow. But Facebook remains our most popular social media platform. For our website, our total page views, we have 93,000. Our top traffic channels that we have, organic, it's usually a Google search or something like that, or direct, meaning that they directly type in LOSFA's website to go there. Top page traffic, TOPS. I think TOPS has only been overtaken one time, and that was when we launched the MJ Foster program. But TOPS are other scholarships and grants, our scholarship page, MJ Foster Promise, and the Student Hub. And then our top referrals, Facebook, Classroom, so high schools that are directing students to our page, the MJ Foster Promise page that we have in collaboration with LCTCS and niche.com as well. And any questions for us before we turn it over? Thanks, everybody.
Morning, everyone.
Let's
Happy weekend. Awesome. In our comprehensive advisory section of our updates from student engagement, next slide, please. Just wanted to keep you guys in the loop with regards to our case management system that we're utilizing to get track documented report on our comprehensive advisory services that our officers are doing and providing so diligently. At the time of this submission, at a total count of cases showing 117 since we started servicing in July with this concept of advising. I would venture to say that we had maybe 12 more added to it. So we're steadily getting cases from various points of contact, outreach, direct referral, individuals emailing to our LOSFA advising internally. So it's a myriad way of, there are myriad way of students onboarding to receive service. So that screen is pretty much our dashboard that have shown how cases are divvied up, showing currently those cases were active as of December. 46, it's kind of blurred screen there, so forgive me that I can't see. But we have 8 that at that time of publication that was escalating to simply means X amount of time have passed and to make sure that it's kind of keep the cases moving, right? And to see the closing rate. The closing rate is low because I want to share this. Our staff are providing such due diligence in servicing those students. It's not just the site go there. We are guiding them. Some may stay with them in their full matriculation, freshman college to senior year, or it may be a senior in high school, depending on what point of their educational journey that students on. Next slide.
Question, what prompts a case to be created?
That's what I was sharing, the referral. So
Every referral is.
not every referral, if it's referrals referred for compensated advice services.
Okay.
So it could be through first office hours, our team receiving those calls from that route. They direct them to our LOSFA advice and email if they connected with each other, or to a referral form, which is available electronically, so that as our staff's out doing outreach, they can share it and onboard that way. Phone contact, whichever.
Maybe my question is, how do they get to the comprehensive advising piece of it? So if I'm just chatting with someone or am I emailing, what prompts them to know?
That's why
I
I need a
need to-
direct referral.
Okay,
To those direct referrals with the form or the submission.
It's the complexity of the case.
okay, thank you.
Okay, so there's 3 tiers, just to kind of review that LOSFA 2.0 tier. The intake and assessment officers are phone. You know, you're calling, you know how many hours it takes to get TOPS. That's either going to be, ideally, that's going to be Lex and not a human. But you have a question that is very simple and can be resolved, then it stops at the phone. That's your first tier. Then you have a middle tier of outreach coordinators. Okay, so in that tier, this case is a little bit more complex than somebody on the phone is going to be able to resolve because it needs some research. Like something's wrong in that student hub, or we don't have your ACT, and the phone is quick because you've got other callers in the queue, right? So that's your middle tier. Now, I like to say affectionately that what had happened was, then that's comprehensive. And those are cases where it's like, yeah, you're going to need more help. This is more than just research. This is more than just, can you fix my thing on the student hub, or how do I adjust my socials wrong? What do I do? Now, these are cases that often involve wraparound services. More often than not, that person has a problem that sometimes is not even within the context of the award programs LOSFA operates, but it is within the context of college access. And it is going to impact their ability to access college if it isn't addressed. That's where the comprehensive advising officers, they were created because that tier is intensive and you've got to have people dedicated to that. We were trying to have our phone people do phone and outreach and this, and that's just not feasible. as we expand these audiences, so.
And my apologies for it.
No, that's okay.
No, it was definitely, you know, just a good time, as
Tears.
yes, shared. Go ahead.
Sorry, I see that the average age is 25.9, so are a lot of these cases mostly like non-traditional that are not so easy that kind of go? Or is it just, it's all everybody? Okay.
I get all kinds. Oftentimes it will come from a legislator directly to my phone. And then I have to kind of make that call, and I don't mind that, that's my job. Then I have to make that call, and if I can't make that call, then I'll refer it to both Ebony and Shane and Livonia. And then they can kind of look at it and say, okay, based upon what we know, we're going to refer it accordingly, and we know it might be a case that one of our comprehensive advising officers has a niche specialty in that, then it might go to them. So that's just kind of the way. It's definitely very fluid, and that's what it's meant to be.
Definitely. So I'm excited about the mix of student populations that we are seeing there, so there. Any other questions on? Thank you very much. Next slide, please. As we talk about the holistic services front, again, most of we talk about student engagement and going with comprehensive advice. Those 3 pillars of our LOSFA 2.0, I mean, it almost correlate and cross-second each other. But I wanted to share in this month's update, let's talk about the holistic services. We have a few opportunities for our student network groups to really intimately address students, the whole student. And so as we come to another calendar year end, the next set of graphics that we provided just to kind of give you a snapshot of what our activity in student engagement through our network look like for 2023. Now, I must preface that started the year, this work a year ago in SE with our network. We had 3 student engagement, well, 3 student engagement specialists. And one of them was a student intern that we marked into a part-time employee, and the other was another part-time employee. But when we saw the transition in LOSFA 2.0 into the more concentrated of case management approach and the small group advising for our CAOs in July, we started the fall semester. These groups in the first half of 2023 were 7 different groups giving us 7 different nights. And then we truncated it in the fall of 2023 into all 7 groups giving 1 night. So I pointed that out to show you our events for 2023 and our attendance, they kind of correlate with each other. You may see our orientations, which are held once per month. We say, well, we only have, they have once per month, but we have 18. Sometimes we do campus-specific orientations for those groups that we have. For those of our advisory board members who are new, those 7 groups again are county, engineering, education, nursing, IT, CIS, have the MJ Fosters, and then we have it for our post-secondary transition students, our secondary high school students, that's the title of that group. So those 7 groups, we meet monthly for the orientations. Then we meet monthly with the groups themselves. So we've had SGN meetings that you see, that's why you have 31, because when we were meeting the first half of 2023, each group had their own nights. With 2024, that number is going to decrease because of the groups that we meet with them at this time. And then our student engagement presentations may include community-based presentations where we are working with small groups within, let's say, a fitness gym that wants to come over and speak with youth, or I would say after school outreach program. They'll make those presentations for student engagement. Or it could be our post-secondary faculty and staff activity departments, partnerships that we have with them. They want us to come in and speak to their professors, their deans, their staff, so that they can create that value with their student population about the network, helping us to promote and making those departments aware of this particular service. The attendance and that middle slide just shows what we look at there. Again, I want to point out that gray area that represents our student engagement presentations. Again, because we're having majority of our percentage of time is in those presentations. We're seeing that our audience is bigger there. Why? Because our groups are designed to incident small so they can have that safe, create that safe space for students to come in and share. That last slide, it shows how many orientations we did, but also the attendance for those orientations. So we had 10 different students who requested orientations in 2023. Next slide, please. It's a continuation on, next slide, whereby we're breaking it down into what our network participation in the monthly meetings are. We have approximately, 30 schools throughout the state of Louisiana that has had at least one student come to our network in 2023. These two slides show the numbers in attendance per those schools, and you see the variation there. Again, Northwest always stands out. The questions always asked, why that school? Well, again, very receptive and responsive staff and administration. Just this week, as schools return, before, well, some of them started Monday. Last week, NSU were orientating their first BSN clinical, first year BSN students. They reached out to us, they called them, say, hey, can you come back and do your orientation to our students? We have a network group. You know, we have, and so that's part of our 6th group offering to that one campus. We had LSU to do the same, and we had Tech with their accounting department. So our various ways of onboarding the network, I wanted to just to kind of highlight for 2023 what those attendances looked like. Again, those students, we have some that repeat, some come in and say, okay, I get this. It may not be my cup of tea, but thank you for the offer. And you have some that really embrace the work and really want to, really need the support, really need the encouragement, and really see the value in being connected to peers, connected to resources, and connected to employers. So I just wanted to just share those numbers from our network groups from 2023. Next slide, please. As we talk about 2023, we're getting ready to switch. We kick off on the 5th Monday of this month. Our groups meet on the 3rd Monday, but the 5th Monday just to allow in January to allow all of us that month. So our calendars have been shared with you all there, and exciting thing. I'd like to thank our cast team members, their graphic design team for just keeping our flyers and our calendars updated and current, so that we can both the groups on various platforms. Next slide. So when we talk about part of the work we're doing with our network groups and with our advising, it's connecting students with those career paths, right? I'm so excited about this turnaround. One example of our connecting students through the network groups with employers that are seeing the value of onboarding Gen students. Our employee engagement coordinator, she has been spending time building those relationships with employers, but maintaining them through periodic follow-up and contact. Our neighbors here in the Galvez building, DEQ, reached out and said, hey, we are getting ready to be some student interns. We have some open positions. So we collaborated with our cast team members on our various messaging platforms to see how contact emails, and through the quick text messaging platform was able to communicate job openings, internship opportunities. And in the matter of seconds, when we sent that quick text, slide to the right shows that exchange and how we're able to onboard. I think we had 5 students to reach out, and 3 are now on track for consideration for internship. Next slide. As we wrap up, again, we introduce you 5 staff members from SC, from audit, okay, and then you've been in IT. This week, as we are onboarding those individuals, one of the comments that I received early on, go to the next slide, was that it's something about this atmosphere. The staff here at LOSFA is so supportive. That is because of the work that is intentionally done by our employee and customer engagement specialists there. So for the month of December, with the various committees that have been formed through this effort, we were able to support our own staff's mental health. And during the holidays. So we had opportunities to, as we know, holidays, there's every time of the year. Remember the loss of loved ones and there's so much that come back. So in the month of December, our staff was exposed to various tips and strategies for self-care and management. There are opportunities to have, okay, Amy talked about the number of king cakes, the holidays, there's a lot of blood as well, but nonetheless, this I wanted to share with you all how we are promoting those coping strategies among our staff. And it's showing up day to day and hoping that can convey over to the work and state of people. That's our last slide.
Is there questions?
Morning to everyone, and I'll still say Happy New Year. It's a little installment, you can say Happy New Year until the King holiday, so let's give a few more days. Happy New Year. We'll start off with the GOLD grant. We've been reaching out to the schools who did not feel close to having their allocation for the 23-24 year. We have $70 million available in that program. We won't get any bills until the schools have passed their 14th class day. I think we're waiting on Louisiana Tech right now for their winter quarter and they'll go for their spring quarter in March when that happens. So that's the status on GOLD grant, which will probably remain low for the February meeting because we'll start to get billings around that time. With our Genre Justice program, we do have an update. There is one applicant that we're reviewing this week for payment. And we've been doing Genre Justice probably since 2010, 2011. We still had student loans. That program was in the loan division. And once we switched over in 2012, it became a program of scholarships and grants. So for the first time, we will be awarding a federal public defender the Genre Justice grant, because all our applicants on the public side have been state PDs and then the prosecutors. So we're excited about having our first public defender in the history of the program being awarded the Genre Justice program. For the upcoming year, for our application period opened on January 1st, it closed on April 30th. We did receive a significant increase, so we have $103,422 for the award year. So we'll award 5 public defenders $10,000 each and 10 prosecutors at $5,000 each. And what happens once they're selected, that payment goes directly to their lender of choice to reduce their total student indebtedness. So we're gearing up for that program for the those awards we made during the fall semester. Next slide. MJ Foster. So those are the stats, and we haven't made any payments since the December 19th program. We've had 8,533 applicants, and just one of the things to note is that we had a webinar yesterday and one again today, informing students of alternate funding sources because the money will run out. That's what we anticipating. Currently, we have a balance of $1.48 million for the spring semester. Now, we look back, the program was 10.5 for the 23-24 academic year. So over $8 million was expended in just one semester, one period, half the year. So we do anticipate running out of funding for that program. So we've connected with, for instance, Louisiana Workforce Commission. We had a person from the VOA program on there yesterday, someone from an apprenticeship program. We had a representative from from the LCT system that spoke about institutional aid. So we're trying to inform students of other sources of funding in the event they are not awarded for the MJ Foster for the spring semester or the spring building period in a proprietary school, one of the eligible programs for that. The Youth Challenge Grant, that program will have no new payments for the upcoming academic year. As you know, that program was awarded $200,000. Those funds were meant to be spent down. So we anticipate anticipate them, seeking funding from the legislature during this upcoming legislative session so that they can award those students who, finish the National Guard Youth Challenge Program. They do, however, have a foundation that has been supporting those students who were not able to get funding from what was remaining in our allocation, for them. I think
Was
that's
that-
sure.
It's like a one-time funding of $200,000 with that.
When they receive the funding, because the Youth Challenge Program for those students 15 through 18, go to National Guard boot camp style training, and there are 3 sites. One is in Carville, one in Mendon, and one in Bossier. So once they finish that program, they're eligible for the grant. Various things happen. Some of them decide to go into the military, some of them will go there and all. Because they have certified teachers at those facilities, some students just go there to do their course recovery from high school, and then they go back to their traditional high school and finish. So whatever the case is, now that once they graduate, they're eligible for the grant, and it pays tuition at a 2 or 4 year public school for students who major in a program that will lead to a 3, 4, or 5-star job. So we work with Workforce Commission and look at that listing of what those jobs are in the 3, 4, 5 area, and then they can major in that and get the award for up to 2 years. So, it wasn't, when they got the allocation of $200,000, it was meant to be spent down. So now that they've used all the funding, and we funded students for the fall semester, they use their foundation money for those who didn't get funded in the fall, and they'll use it for the spring. And they're working with the legislative delegation to propose a bill for funding for that program.
But the bill proposing, is it trying to secure annual funding for that, or is it just another supplement to a one-time?
Depends on the way they write it, because the way they appropriated it the first time, they did not do an annual appropriation. They just did one, and then when it's gone, it's gone. So now we're at it's gone.
Right.
So it would be their choice this time as to whether they want to look at the statistics. That's one of the things we've been told that they will ask about.
Yeah.
In the as to whether that's going to be appropriated one-time spend down or an annual appropriation.
One thing just to point out with Go Youth, that program was originally put into the law back in the early 2000s. And the same situation happened then, and then it wasn't funded for, I think it was 12 years. And they funded it again, and here we are in that situation where we have the money. So hopefully.
Yeah. If they're wanting to see the outcomes from it, say, okay, we're going to kickstart this program back up, we want to see from it, and if anyone outcomes, they might want to try to push for something like that. Yeah, I was curious the mechanism.
We provide those outcomes through Dr. Uche, the Board of Regents, and on the surface, they don't look great. But some of the testimony from, like, for instance, Lieutenant Paul, who works with the program, some students would have never had the opportunity to pursue, and some they dropped out of the program or didn't need it, but then they've gone back. And then just to kind of, Dr. create a college going culture for their family and for younger siblings and other people. So they had some real powerful testimony, even from some of the recipients who finished the program, that they would not have made it, not even get into the Youth Challenge program. And people think of these are kids they're not juvenile delinquents. Some of them I have someone that was in one of my running groups. She works for state police. Her son just got tired of going to school. He was just, I don't like school anymore. And she got in the program, and now he is finished his basic training, graduated from Youth Challenge, and she was telling me how they had a graduation ceremony, a prom, and all the traditional things they did with the high school. And he joined the military and he did basic training. Now he's doing his, whatever the certification part or whatever he's gonna do in the military. So some of those students just need to get back on the right track for whatever reason. So there was some powerful testimony from some of the students who had received funding. So hopefully that will help. To maybe testify when it's time to ask for funding when it's happening.
Yeah, because I like the program, and that's, I would like to see people more, so I just have to.
Any other questions? Thank you.
This is always the same report as last month. There won't be many invoices coming in until after the 14th day of the spring semester. Southern, Louisiana Tech and ULL are still the only universities to show an increase in TOPS billings over last year. All other universities have shown a decrease. And just a reminder that this will be the last year of significant decrease for TOPS. It's going to start leveling off after next year. It's exiting classes and the class going to be almost exactly the same size. Next month should bring new numbers since many of the schools will have billed. But we have enough information right now to know that we have enough TOPS funding to finish out the year, including summer TOPS. So, y'all are waiting to announce that.
Put the application out.
No, we have not put up the website yet. We just, it was, Rhonda does the date for that. So once we do that, we'll send it out to the school and say that students who want to use time, fill out the form.
Yeah, and I just added it to one of the things to follow up on the meeting from, I just put top summer request form for 2024.
So I'll give the administrator time to go ahead and submit their request so that he can announce it to students who are considering funding from some schools at times.
And the other thing I would add is that we have asked for steady states funding for next year. So we should have plenty of money for next year.
Putting together a report that should be ready. We're hoping it will be ready in February to give you kind of a look at the behavior patterns within, because the behavior patterns of accepting TOPS, qualifying for TOPS differ within the award levels. Like the TOPS Tech behavior pattern is totally different from opportunity, performance, and honors is somewhat different. So that report breaks that down. It shows you the phenomenon about if you have, you know, smaller incoming classes and really large outgoing classes at the end, then coupled with national decreases in enrollment, then you're going to have a decrease in the number of students that accept TOPS. You also have a decrease in the number of students that are eligible for TOPS, and we're still seeing those lingering effects of COVID that we all know impacted the students that were kind of on the margin academically most. So we plan to have that ready. So the target is to have that ready for you in February, and certainly before the session, because we're sure we'll get lots of questions. And speaking of getting ready for session, and talking about getting ready for session, getting ready for an incoming new administration. One of the things that Board of Regents asked us for was, you know, what would you say to the new administration about what LOSFA does? Thanks to the work of our CASC team, working with all of the divisions in IT, because that's where those numbers come from, and our graphic designers, we were able to hand them our 2022 year-end report to say, this is what we do and this is the value of it. What we're giving you here on this slide is just a tease of the beginning of the 2023. There will be more detail in this report. And then once that is ready, Rhonda's going to disseminate that to you all via email, so that again, it's that value proposition of what do we do? Who are we? Who do we serve? And what is the scope of the service that we do? And you can see that at, you know, $355 million awarded, you know, this stellar team behind you and back upstairs works with you all in the field to get that done. That number, importantly, when I looked at it yesterday, I'm like, that number's low. I'm like, TOPS is 300 million. Go is 50 to 70 million. That number doesn't include START. So the START numbers are still being compiled. So we're going to break out START separately. But understand, even if you're saying, well, START isn't, you know, START is somebody else's money, it's their own personal money. That's very true, but it still has to be administered and awarded upon request and demand, which is a very different structure from, oh, well, you know, you're gonna have building for TOPS. Those requests come in directly from us. Some go to beneficiaries, some go directly to the school, some go to the account owner. And when you're handling over $1 billion in assets, that's a lot of work. So they will have their own section where those numbers are final, and you will see the full scope of what LOSFA does and the impact. So wanted to highlight that. You can keep going to the next slide. All right, and as we do each month, we have a spotlight of an innovative, what are spotlights? Spotlights are to show you LOSFA 2.0 in action, the criteria for a spotlight. There's innovation involved in that spotlight. There's collaboration involved across the teams in the, and it could be across teams within LOSFA, but it also could be teams within LOSFA and involving external partners with LOSFA. And it needs to be based on, well, did you see something, were you requested to do something different? Did you see a need for a change? Or is this an example of stellar service? So the employees themselves can say, hey, we would like to be spotlighted, we did this. What's the most important part of this? It shows you 2.0 in action, and it gives the recognition that is due to the people that do the hard work. So I want, it's audit and start and who else? I've seen. They're gonna share.
There was a need recognized of START account owners trying to have payments sent to themselves or to their beneficiaries. It becomes very cumbersome because the state treasurer's office requires a W-9. So that means the request is received, and then it was up to START staff to reach out to obtain the needed documentation so we could get those folks checked. Becomes very cumbersome, time consuming. The need was recognized that if we could have Division Administration's site come up on our site so they could enter that request directly, as opposed to us having to gather that information, not only saving time, but also reduce the number of errors that could be potentially done when you're transferring information such as that. So Patrick was good enough to reach out to OSRAP to see if they would be open to this. And after much work on his part to get them to agree, management finally agreed to allow us to put a link to their website so that our vendors could go in and enter their information and take us out of the loop, which is just phenomenal time saving and error to stop some of the errors that just potentially are going to happen. So they did agree. Alice and her team were able to add that link onto our website. So now they are able to go in and enter that directly to OSRAP to get their payments for START, K-12, and ABLE.
We also created some like pop-up messages while they're doing a disbursement so that it can help them or guide them to this link as well. That's correct.
Right, and just to chime in as well, by allowing them to go and set up their actual vendor registration through the website, anytime now that they make certain changes, they actually have that account set up now to make it more feasible. Not to mention, as Tim said, it does allow reduction in errors, plus the processing time on the day for staff in terms of manpower is about 1 to 2 hours a day alone. So that does allow us to focus on other things and get payments out in more time.
Does anyone have any questions?
So basically, that's the revised process that they talked to you about. Which again, this is the difference between somebody getting a check to be able to pay their tuition, as you can understand, that's a time sensitive process. And then one more problem. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. All right, and this again, the team has talked to you about all of the positive, it sounds very simple, right? But as you know, in government,
just because it sounds very simple to be able to do, doesn't mean you're going to get a yes right away. And doesn't mean you're gonna get a, well, I'll think about it, but you have to give me A, B, C, D, and all of that information. So Shane advanced it now, that was right.
Oh, just one other thing before you go with the, I think about in 2014, at least 10 years ago, I tried contacting and I said, we could create like a W-9, would you use that? And it was like, I'll get back to you. And so, yeah, so Patrick did a great job of getting those.
Absolutely, because
It's been.
they're change resistant over there.
It was a lot of concern, basically, increase in volume of technical assistance that may come their way, or request for technical assistance. But again, we were very adamant that we were gonna allow put all the resources necessary out there on the site to assist those individuals. And also, even though we're moving towards the more electronic version to make it easier for those who may not be tech savvy, for whatever reasons, we will still take paper submissions and process those in-house. But we are putting everything out there we can to still offer whatever assistance we can find.
And we do have those account owners, more especially in the dynamic of the able account owners. There's many of them are just not capable or able to do that. So we, of course, will still do those manually and happy to do so.
So this slide currently,
I'm sorry.
have y'all seen it utilized? Like, have you seen some of the initial numbers of the people utilizing it?
Yes.
This basically just shows you who all is involved. We do that puzzle graphic because we want to continue to reinforce to our team members that we're all interconnected. And very little of the work that we do requires just one department without anybody else. I really can't name very much, it's in isolation. And so this lists our partners within LOSFA and then our external partner, which was LOSFA.
Thank you.
Great work. Whole business. So at our last meeting, we did discuss changes in the law that allow us to do electronic meetings. This is the final thing.
Yes, this will be the final. So this rulemaking originally due to y'all, I believe in August. For y'all to look at the rules, make any comments, request any changes to that. And we published it in the register as is required, after the Board of Regents approved the rulemaking. It got published and it's been published for 90 days now, I believe. So now it's time to get a final rule. If y'all approve it today, it will go to the Board of Regents at their February meeting for final.
Board of Regents not meeting February, so it'll be there.
March meeting, excuse me, thank you, Rhonda. Does anybody have any questions? One thing I did want to mention, when it comes to voting on anything, if we do have a virtual meeting, it will have to be a roll call vote. That is one major change from the way we have done it. Get a first and a second and all approved, and we can. But it will.
So to remind myself, so the chair has to be in person, correct?
Whoever is conducting the meeting, so the chair or the vice chair must be.
They have to be present, and everyone else could be electronic.
Could
I mean, it's
yes.
what-
And if they're not available.
I think it's we do have to have a base station, so we will always book this room and conduct the meeting from here. But like, if you still want to come to the meeting, even though it's a publicized virtual meeting, you have that option.
Right, yeah.
And Mary Catherine asked, it's a third of the meetings.
A third of the meetings, 8.
And then how do we decide whether it's virtual or not? Is that-
Well, it has to be advertised in advance,
Okay.
which ones are going to be virtual. And the reason that we did not do that for the first 6 months of this year was because at the time this was published, We didn't know if the legislative body who has oversight over this would request hearings on it. And if that would require changes and an entirely new publication period and all of that. So we did not want to go ahead and say anything virtual and then our rules are, that's not good. So, but once we get probably mid-year, we will advertise, you know, we will publish.
And how long do we have to publish that it's going to be a virtual
It will be published when y'all approve the meetings for that next period. It will be published then, which ones are intended to be virtual.
So after the Board of Regents approves it in March, then we can look at our schedule at our next advisory to see if there's any ones that we want to do virtual.
I think we usually wait till May or June.
Okay.
To, because y'all have already approved the meetings for
For this
January
year.
and June
Okay.
for this fiscal year. And depending upon time, the way the register works, you have to have the information to them the month before you to publish. And they publish on the 20th. So depending upon, I don't know what the date of the March meeting is to do that. Okay. Yes.
I can pull it up. I'm sorry. Give me just a second.
So if it after the 20th of March, we likely will not be able to publish the final rule until May.
Got it. Okay.
So
But
it's
either way, we're not going to be looking at any virtual meetings for us until after our.
probably not until July or after.
Yeah. Any other questions?
We do not have a May meeting, I know that much.
Okay.
And our June meeting. I want to say our June meeting is late because of the kids, because of session ending and stuff, we made it later. It's not pulling up on my calendar at the moment, but I'm on WebBell and always have to. June 19th. So, I'm looking on Thursdays too, that could be the issue. We moved them to Wednesdays, so yeah, so June 19th. We'll have those.
It just needs March 27th.
Yeah, it won't, it definitely
March 27th.
won't be.
Any other questions? If not, may I have a motion to approve? Option. Lindsay, motions, may I have a second? Brad? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Yeas. Motion passes. Business. So this is the TOPS home study section. So we're asking consideration to consider the request for exception to the top statute for provision that requires a student to begin a home study program no later than the conclusion of the 10th grade.
So I'll do a little background for this meeting. Prior to a couple of years ago, we were not permitted to do exceptions to this home study requirement. It's in the law that a student has to begin a home study program by the beginning of it. We had seen a number of different students who could not be made eligible for TOPS because they started a study program in the middle of 11th grade or 12th grade. The vast majority of those students had some sort of illness that required that they transition to home study because they could not be around people. There were some with anxiety. There were some who moved from one area of the state to another during their senior year because a parent was in the military. And they could not see making their student be dropped into a new school for the last 3 months of their high school career. So it's different things like that. When we bring these to you, the students have provided us with documentation, which is summarized in these summaries that are provided. It is reviewed by an in-house committee consisting of executive staff. Then it will come to y'all for your review and approval. And if you approve, then it will go to the board of regents for their review as well.
I have a motion to approve. Christie motion, second. Amy, seconds. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Yeas. Motion passes. And one last order of new business are TOPS exceptions. Consider the request for exception to the TOPS regulatory provisions that require students to remain continuously enrolled and to earn the annual credit hours required during the application.
Okay, so home study is initial eligibility. This is continuing eligibility. This is for students who have already been made eligible, and they have started school, or they need to start school late. Students have a year from the time that they graduate to be able to go to school. And Dr. Boutte and I were talking about this earlier when we were talking about the FAFSA issues. There could be some 23 graduates who are going to start school this fall. And with FAFSA delays and not knowing what's going on, they could very well have issues going to school this fall. So that's the type of things that would come to this committee. There are a number of different objective exceptions which go to an in-house committee. Those are the ones that we can tell you exactly what we need you to give us. These are the ones that are off the wall. They are odd circumstances that more likely than not, nobody would staff could manage. Favorite example is the poor student who had carpenter ants in her apartment. She sent us pictures, inch to inch and a half long ants falling out of the ceiling everywhere. She provided
The shower on everything.
Yes. Provided us
And I see it.
documentation that she had requested multiple times for her landlord to get this fixed. After 2 months of living in this situation, she withdrew from school. She has no control over those circumstances. Those are the things that will come to you as these exceptions.
Is there one here this time?
There is
With the
one
student
in
had-
time where the students.
Living conditions were not what they were advertised as being, so it's like, you can't make this stuff up.
And we do have pictures for the one that's in here this time as well. It was disgusting. Yes.
Right, and in his case, that was on the news, not once, but several times. It's like, he's not the
Multiple
only student, because it's like a complex wide issue.
Well, you have been presented with the exceptions for the TOPS regulatory provisions. May I have a motion to approve these? It's Maple, a second by Brad. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any nays? Motion passes. Our next meeting date, as a reminder, is Wednesday, February 21st. Is there anything else for the good of the group? Before we ask for a motion to adjourn. Right, motion to adjourn. I'll make the motion first. Steve and make it. All in favor, say aye. Any nays? All right, we are.